Everyone thinks this story is about Max Verstappen joining McLaren. It isn't. The real story is that one performance clause, one disastrous Silverstone weekend, and one quiet meeting in the paddock have suddenly placed Oscar Piastri's future under the microscope. And when Mark Webber finally broke his silence, he wasn't just defending his driver. He may have exposed a political battle Formula One fans never saw coming. Formula One's driver market has exploded almost overnight. Following the British Grand Prix, rumours linking Max Verstappen with a sensational move to McLaren intensified after multiple paddock sources claimed discussions between both camps had reached an advanced stage. Normally, that would simply be another chapter of silly season. Except this time, one name unexpectedly found itself at the centre of the storm: Oscar Piastri. But here's what the teams aren't telling us. Rumours about Piastri supposedly wanting to leave McLaren appeared almost immediately after Zak Brown was seen speaking with Verstappen's manager, while Red Bull's own internal frustrations continued spilling into public view after another disappointing weekend. Coincidence? Or the first domino in Formula One's biggest political shake-up in years? Before we move on, make sure to smash that like button and hit subscribe so you never miss out on any of our latest videos. Because what we're about to uncover isn't just another transfer rumour. It may completely change how you see McLaren, Red Bull and Max Verstappen's future. Just a few weeks ago, the idea sounded almost laughable. Max Verstappen in papaya. For years, Formula One fans assumed that if Verstappen ever left Red Bull, Mercedes would be the obvious destination. Toto Wolff had openly admired him for years, and every driver market discussion eventually circled back to Brackley. Then Silverstone happened. A difficult weekend for Red Bull didn't simply damage Verstappen's championship campaign. It reignited whispers that had quietly circulated inside the paddock for months. Suddenly, respected media outlets began reporting that McLaren had emerged as the most serious alternative should Verstappen activate an exit route from his Red Bull contract. Notice how quickly the conversation changed. The question was no longer whether Verstappen wanted to leave. The question became, who would lose their seat? Lando Norris seemed untouchable after helping lead McLaren's resurgence back to the front. That left Oscar Piastri as the name repeatedly thrown into speculation. Within days, social media transformed uncertainty into apparent fact. Posts claimed Piastri wanted out. Others insisted McLaren was preparing to buy out his contract. Some even suggested a direct swap with Red Bull. The remarkable part? None of those stories were backed by concrete evidence. Yet once Formula One's rumour machine gains momentum, perception often becomes more powerful than reality. And that's exactly why one man decided it was finally time to step in. If the Austrian Grand Prix raised questions, Silverstone amplified them. Verstappen never looked comfortable throughout the weekend. He repeatedly complained about the balance of the Red Bull, describing a car that simply refused to behave the way he wanted through high-speed corners. Engineers introduced aerodynamic changes, but instead of stabilising the package, the car became increasingly unpredictable as conditions evolved. Then came the race. A rear-wing issue triggered a costly spin that left Verstappen stranded outside the points. For a driver who measures weekends purely by victories, it wasn't just a bad result. It was another warning sign that Red Bull's technical advantage had disappeared. But the real drama arrived after the checkered flag. Instead of protecting the team, Verstappen publicly questioned Red Bull's decision to reject his request for a pit lane start after setup concerns. "I would have done it differently." That sentence landed like a hammer inside the paddock. Moments later came an even more revealing comment. "It would take a very zen person to stay optimistic after what happened this weekend." That's not the language of a driver frustrated by one race. That's the language of someone whose confidence in the project is beginning to crack. Former driver Ralf Schumacher later claimed the relationship between Verstappen and Red Bull had deteriorated significantly, while reports from Dutch media suggested senior figures inside the organisation were becoming increasingly frustrated by the uncertainty surrounding Verstappen's long-term future. Suddenly, the rumours weren't just fuelled by speculation, they were fuelled by visible tension. Normally, Oscar Piastri would be the last driver expected to appear in transfer gossip. Young, exceptionally fast, calm under pressure, and one of McLaren's biggest long-term investments. So why did his name suddenly dominate headlines? The answer lies in one widely discussed but never officially confirmed detail: a reported performance clause linked to his championship position. Following the British Grand Prix, Piastri slipped outside the top 5 in the Drivers' Championship. Almost immediately, speculation began suggesting that this clause could theoretically make his McLaren future more vulnerable. Within hours, internet rumours escalated beyond recognition. Some claimed McLaren could replace him. Others insisted Red Bull had already made contact. Sources close to Piastri, however, described those claims as purely speculative. The Australian himself looked completely unfazed. "I've got a contract in place. I've had multiple reassurances that the team are very happy with me." Those words should have ended the discussion. Instead, they only made fans ask an even bigger question. If Piastri isn't leaving, then why are the Verstappen rumours refusing to disappear? Mark Webber has spent enough years inside Formula One to know one simple rule: ignore one rumour and it disappears. Ignore 1,000 rumours and eventually someone starts believing them. That's exactly why his intervention mattered. Webber isn't just Oscar Piastri's manager. He's a former Red Bull race winner who understands how quickly politics can overwhelm performance. When he finally decided to speak, he didn't hide behind carefully crafted PR language. He went straight for the heart of the story. Oscar is contracted to McLaren for the foreseeable future. Then came the knockout punch. Talk of him agitating to leave is nonsense. That wording was deliberate. Notice he didn't criticise Max Verstappen. He didn't accuse Red Bull. He didn't attack the journalists. Instead, he dismantled the narrative itself. Why? Because inside Formula One, perception can become reality long before contracts change. If rival teams begin believing a driver is unhappy, negotiations become easier. Sponsors become nervous. Engineers start asking uncomfortable questions about next year's development direction. Webber understood that allowing the rumour to grow unchecked could slowly damage Piastri's standing inside the paddock, even if none of it was true. And his comments perfectly matched what Piastri had already revealed at Silverstone. "I've got a contract in place. I've had multiple reassurances that the team are very happy with me, and I'm very happy with the team." Those aren't vague diplomatic answers. They're unusually specific. Multiple reassurances suggests internal discussions had already taken place behind closed doors. McLaren clearly recognised the speculation was becoming a distraction and moved quickly to reassure one of its biggest long-term investments. Yet despite Webber's intervention, despite Piastri's confidence, the rumours refused to die, because one meeting kept coming back into the spotlight. Every major Formula One transfer has an origin story. This one began with a conversation. Before the Austrian Grand Prix, cameras spotted McLaren CEO Zak Brown speaking with Max Verstappen's manager, Raymond Vermeulen. Nothing unusual. Team bosses and managers talk all the time. Except this wasn't just any driver, it was Max Verstappen. Within hours, the paddock's imagination went into overdrive. Were they negotiating? Was McLaren secretly preparing for life with Verstappen? Or was it simply a routine conversation that exploded because of timing? Zak Brown quickly tried to calm the situation. The conversations didn't go anywhere. Then he added another crucial statement. "I've got my 2 drivers. What I couldn't offer him was a seat in my race car. On paper, that should have ended the story. Instead, it poured fuel onto the fire. Because Formula One has a long memory. Fans remember that some of the sport's biggest transfers began with identical denials before eventually becoming reality. Meanwhile, Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff publicly called his pursuit of Verstappen, insisting he wanted stability with George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. Ferrari was already locked in with Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. That left only one realistic destination capable of offering Verstappen a championship-winning car: McLaren. Whether Brown liked it or not, the mathematics of the driver market kept dragging his team back into the headlines. Max Verstappen has never been known for diplomatic answers. If the car is slow, he says it. If strategy is wrong, he says it. If engineers make a mistake, everyone hears about it. Which makes his response to the McLaren rumours incredibly unusual. When asked directly about his future, Verstappen didn't deny the reports. He simply said, "I'm not going to say anything about that. It's not fair to say anything about that right now." That isn't confirmation, but it certainly isn't the emphatic denial many expected either. Contrast that with how openly he discussed Red Bull's performance after Silverstone. He criticised the balance of the car. He questioned the decision to reject his request for a pit lane start. After spinning out following rear wing issues, he admitted the weekend had become another painful reminder that Red Bull was no longer operating at the level he expected. Then came perhaps the most revealing quote of all. It would be a very zen person to stay optimistic at the moment. Those words carried far more weight than any transfer rumour. They suggested frustration, not with one race, but with an entire direction. Former driver Ralf Schumacher believes the relationship between Verstappen and Red Bull has deteriorated significantly, even claiming that the proverbial curtain between both sides has been torn apart. Reports from Dutch media paint a similar picture, suggesting senior Red Bull figures were unhappy after Verstappen reportedly refused to guarantee he would remain beyond 2026. Laurent Mekies has continued insisting the solution is simple. Give Max a faster car, because everyone inside Red Bull understands one uncomfortable truth. Verstappen has never demanded loyalty. He has only ever demanded competitiveness. And if another team can offer that more convincingly, every rumour suddenly becomes a little harder to dismiss. Here's the detail that many fans have overlooked. This story isn't being driven by emotion. It's being driven by mathematics. Multiple paddock reports suggest Verstappen's Red Bull contract contains performance-related mechanisms tied to his championship position. While the exact wording remains confidential, several respected publications have reported that failing to remain within a specified position in the Drivers' Championship could give him greater flexibility regarding his future. That transforms every Grand Prix into more than just another race. Every point suddenly has legal value. Every lost position strengthens speculation. And after Silverstone, Verstappen's deficit to the championship leaders grew significantly, leaving far fewer opportunities before the summer break to recover the ground required. Now compare that situation with McLaren. The Woking-based team has quietly become the benchmark under the current regulations. Its aerodynamic platform generates consistent downforce without destroying the rear tyres, allowing both Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri to maintain stronger race pace over long stints. Their tyre degradation has repeatedly been among the best on the grid, while strategy execution has become one of the team's biggest strengths after years of costly mistakes. For Verstappen, that's an attractive package, not because it's famous, because it's fast. But McLaren's success also creates a dilemma. The team isn't searching for a superstar. It already has two drivers capable of winning races. Signing Verstappen would not simply strengthen the team. It would force McLaren to dismantle the very structure that brought it back to the front. Sometimes, the hardest decision in Formula One isn't replacing failure, it's replacing success. Formula One has witnessed this kind of situation before, and history wasn't kind. Cast your mind back to 2007. McLaren assembled what looked like the perfect driver pairing: Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton, one proven champion, one extraordinary rookie. The result should have been domination. Instead, it became one of Formula One's greatest internal collapses. Political division spread through the garage. Trust disappeared. Every strategy call became controversial. By the end of the season, despite possessing one of the quickest cars, McLaren lost both championships. That's why today's rumours should make Zak Brown think very carefully. Max Verstappen isn't simply another elite driver. He's a four-time world champion who naturally expects a team to be built around him. Lando Norris has spent years rebuilding McLaren into a title contender. Oscar Piastri continues proving why so many believed he was a future champion before he even reached Formula One. Can all three realities coexist? Former F1 driver Martin Brundle doesn't think Verstappen's situation is straightforward. He pointed out that Ferrari appears locked in with Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. Mercedes is committed to George Russell and Kimi Antonelli, while McLaren already has Norris and Piastri under contract. In other words, even the fastest driver in the world still needs somebody to make room. And in Formula One, asking someone to surrender a winning seat has never been a peaceful conversation. The next race weekend now carries pressure that extends far beyond championship points. Every Verstappen radio transmission will be analysed. Every McLaren strategy decision will be scrutinised. Every interaction between Zak Brown, Red Bull management and Verstappen's entourage will become headline material. Because perception has become almost as valuable as outright speed. If Red Bull arrives with meaningful upgrades and Verstappen immediately returns to fighting for victory, much of this speculation could cool overnight. Winning has a remarkable habit of repairing relationships. But if the balance problems continue, if tyre degradation remains inconsistent, if McLaren once again controls the race pace, then the rumours will become impossible to ignore. There's also a psychological battle unfolding. Should Oscar Piastri comfortably outperform Verstappen, McLaren gains another powerful argument for maintaining its current driver lineup. But if Verstappen drags an unpredictable Red Bull onto the podium, or even into victory contention, the opposite narrative emerges. People will no longer ask whether McLaren should protect Piastri. They'll ask whether any team can realistically refuse the opportunity to sign the sport's most complete driver. That's the brutal reality of Formula One. One outstanding Sunday can reshape months of negotiations. One disappointing weekend can reopen doors everyone claimed were already closed. Now, for the first time in the ground effect era, another team appears to hold the stronger long-term momentum. McLaren has rebuilt itself through patience rather than panic. Its technical department has produced one of the grid's most complete cars. Its operational discipline has improved dramatically, and perhaps most importantly, it has created an environment where two highly competitive young drivers continue pushing each other without publicly tearing the team apart. That stability may actually be its greatest competitive advantage. Which is why Mark Webber's intervention mattered so much. He wasn't simply defending Oscar Piastri, he was protecting McLaren's future narrative. Zak Brown insists his driver lineup is complete. Oscar Piastri says he's staying. Laurent Mekies believes a faster Red Bull will solve everything. And Max Verstappen? He still refuses to completely shut the door. Maybe that's negotiation. Maybe that's strategy. Or maybe it's the oldest lesson in Formula One. The biggest moves are rarely announced first. They're quietly prepared while everyone is watching somewhere else. So now the question goes to you. Is Max Verstappen genuinely preparing to walk away from Red Bull? Or has this entire saga become the ultimate negotiating weapon? One designed to force Red Bull into giving him exactly what he wants: a championship-winning car and even greater influence over the team's future. And perhaps the even bigger question is this: if you were Zak Brown, would you really dismantle one of Formula One's strongest driver pairings to sign a four-time world champion? Or would you trust the project that has already turned McLaren back into the team to beat? Let us know your verdict down in the comments, because this debate is only just beginning. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the politics, strategy, and hidden stories shaping Formula One, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, because as this driver market continues to evolve, we'll be here to uncover every twist before it reaches the headlines.